All right, how we doing today, family? So my name is Mike Wong, and I got the honor and privilege of preaching today. The title for my short charge is Persevere in Faith, right? So I definitely want to start out with, man, faith is like a human superpower. It's like, man, with our faith, we could tap into God's power, and we could overcome any situation just by our faith. So we're going to go through a little Bible study on faith, on persevering in your faith, so you can unlock God's power to overcome any situation, right? Right? So perseverance, I want to start out with just breaking it down. So perseverance in the Greek it says hupomone. I think how you say it. But if I butchered it, yeah. But which means steadfastness, constancy. Constancy is the quality of being enduring and unchanging, and endurance. It also describes from the Greek how perseverance is defined in the New Testament as a characteristic of a man who's not swerved from his deliberate purpose and his loyalty to faith by even the greatest trials of suffering, right? So it's like perseverance is unwavering, right? And faith in the Greek is pistis, which means conviction, right? So when we're persevering in our faith, we are men and women who are unchanging and unswerving in our conviction, right? And you don't have to turn there, but it says in Hebrews 11, verse 6, it's the hall of faith. That's where you find like just so many people that were faithful in the Bible, that practice faith, right? And it says, without faith, Hebrews 11, verse 6, it says, and without faith it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So without faith or conviction, it's impossible to please God. So you need faith even just to please God. It says it is impossible to please God if you don't have any faith. So I want to ask you, family, today, where is your faith? Are you holding firmly onto your convictions that was passed down to you when you started studying the Bible? Are you still holding on to those convictions, right? Jesus mentioned in Matthew 17, verse 20, that all we need is a mustard seed of faith to move mountains. Have you ever seen a mustard seed? I challenge you guys, if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's so small, so tiny. But Jesus says, if you have that little faith, you can move mountains. And it may not be physical mountains, but it's spiritual mountains of going after the lost and changing people's hearts, right? So the writer of Hebrews mentions that we have to first and foremost believe in God. That's what faith is believing in the unseen, right? That's what faith is, confidence in what we hope for and assurance of what we do not see, right? Believing in God is the first step to persevering in our faith or being unswerving in our convictions, right? So let's look at a prophet in the Bible who understood this concept. First step one is believing in God. That's my point one. Point one is believe in God, all right? Let's turn to Jeremiah 14, chapter 14, verse 22. All right. Let me know when you guys are there. Jeremiah 14, verse 22. Give me an amen when you're there. Amen. So it says, do any of the worthless idols of the nations bring rain? Do the skies themselves send down showers? No, it is you, Lord, our God. Therefore, our hope is in you, for you are the one who does all of this, right? So the prophet Jeremiah, he understood that, man, there has to be a God. You know, you even look outside. You see the sun, you see the moon, right? You see the moon always coming up every single day. Who do you think orchestrates all these different things? Of nature, of the sun coming down, of rain, is all God. And he says you have to put your hope in God. So that's the first step of persevering in our faith, is belief in God, right? And speaking of weather, let's go to another prophet that talked about weather. You know, he prayed weather-related prayers, and he was rewarded by God with his persevering faith, right? So let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18. So 1 Kings chapter 18, and so that was my first point. So point 2 is earnestly seek God. Remember Hebrews 11 verse 6, it described how we have to, one, believe in God and also earnestly seek God, right? To persevere in our faith. Let's go to 1 Kings 18, and then we're going to read from verse 41 to 45. So some background information, just so it's not all over the place. So the background information is Israel had a huge drought during this time. 3.5 years. It describes in James 5 verse 17 how James said that Elijah prayed and then rain came down to Israel, right? So they had a big drought during this time. And let's see more context of this from verse 41 to 45. And it says, and Elijah said to Ahab, so Ahab's the king during this time, the reason they even have a drought is because they are worshiping other gods. Him and his wife, Jezebel, they're worshiping Baal, right? And it says, Elijah said to Ahab, go eat and drink, for there is a sound of a heavy rain. So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. So he's praying right now. He's praying. It ties in with Leroy's little charge, right? You have to pray. Prayer is a part of persevering in faith, right? So it says, go and look towards the sea. He says, yeah. So he starts praying. He says, go and look towards the sea, he told his servant. And he went up and looked. There is nothing there, he said. 7 times Elijah said, go back. The seventh time, the servant reported, a cloud as small as a hand's man is rising from the sea. So Elijah said, go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you. Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds. The wind rose. A heavy rain started falling. And Ahab rode off to Jezreel, right? So we see, starting in verse 41, that Ahab believed before praying. Notice, he said, go. He says, go and eat and drink, for there is a sound of heavy rain. He didn't even start praying yet, and he already believed. So Ahab was practicing Hebrews 11, verse 6, right? He was practicing believing in God before even praying to God, right? Yeah. And in verse 43 to 45, you see Elijah is earnestly seeking after God, right? He's down on the ground. He puts his face between his knees, so he's praying, right? And countless times, he's like, he sends his servant, and then his servant, I can imagine his servant just coming back. He's like, man, Elijah, there's no rain, there's no cloud. And Elijah's like, no, go back. Elijah was faithful in prayer. He was faithful. He was earnestly seeking after God. He understood, he believed that God will make a miracle, right? He believed, like it says 7 times. Imagine praying to God for 7 times in a row. Imagine the 6th time, like he just keep on praying, right? And God is not answering. And I want to ask you guys, like, are you faithful in prayer? Do you lose your conviction or your faith after God doesn't answer you the first time? Similarly to what Leroy said, with prayer, like, are you like persistent in prayer? I definitely have to lift up the Malta household, because it, like a real life example, me, Mike, and Leroy, we were praying for jobs, right? And we were persistent in prayer. We were faithful in prayer. We're earnestly seeking God in prayer every single day. Every day we were praying. Man, I had to deny myself, because it used to be like late night, and Mike's like, nah, we have to pray. So, but what happened was we were praying for jobs, right? And then we just kept on praying. And now we have a job opportunity from our sister Patula, with a woman studying the Bible named Janelle, right? So we see here that the scriptures do come to life. When you're earnest in prayer, when you're earnestly seeking after God, you will unlock the power of God with faith, right? So we see here that just like Elijah, that's the key of having a persevering faith, right? You have to, I didn't go through that yet. So verse 44, he saw God in the little things. Notice his servant came back, and it says a cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. Man, as small as a man's hand, he had to have super faith, right? It wasn't a big cloud like a huge cloud, right? He said, but yeah, it wasn't a huge cloud, right? So he still believed in God, right? So I definitely want to just end off with, you have to be just like Elijah, not only believing God exists and is capable of doing the impossible, but you have to earnestly seek God to have a persevering faith or unwavering conviction, right? And to God be all the glory.